Hello, 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 and welcome to today's episode of Her Version. This podcast is dedicated to sharing stories of struggle to triumph, a platform that allows individuals to tell their truth in order to inspire and uplift others. For those of you that are new to this podcast and like content like this, make sure you hit that subscribe button. Make sure you follow, like, and share. I am your host, Sabrina Victoria. Let's jump right in. Now, I want to ask, through all of this, all the way up until now, even, um, and the journey that you've been through, what would you consider to be your biggest failure? And then what have you learned from that failure?
I think my biggest failure was somewhere, somehow, deep down in me, I knew it was wrong and not taking action on it. So, like, my body had to be physically sick and my head still wasn't acknowledging it, even though I knew, like, I always knew disfellowshipping was wrong. I always knew it never sat well with me. I just thought that it was something that was going to get rectified and corrected at some point, oh, this is a mistake that they're doing right now. And actually, Keith, who I'm married to, he was disfellowshipped for I don't know. I don't even know, 3 years, 4 years. And he said it was funny because after he was reinstated, he's told me that I was the only person that continued to speak to him. He said, "You were literally the only person that didn't cross to the other side of the street when they saw me. Like, you would actually treat me like a human being because I knew disfellowshipping was wrong." And then as the doctrines come out, they're wrong. So I think my failure, I consider it a failure, is that I exposed my kids to it for as long as I did. Um, Even when I had those nagging things in the back of my head, and I didn't let them have all the joys of being a child, like that you have with childhood, like celebrating your birthday, celebrating holidays, enjoying the special moments in life, celebrating Christmas, waking up and having your kids run to go open their gifts underneath the tree, all of those things. Those are regrets more than failures, but those are regrets because of the failures.
Yeah, 100%. I agree with that. One of the things that I really do appreciate, with you and hearing your story is just the growth that you've had. Even when we first got on to the podcast, the exercise that you did with showing gratitude and actually, um, going through with what was asked of you. Because people can take on an exercise of showing gratitude and scribble a bunch of things down on a piece of paper and be like, yeah, it was great. I told a couple people, but then actually not tell a couple people. The act of actually improving yourself, the act of personally growing. When do you think that kind of, because that doesn't happen when you're a Jehovah's Witness. There is no real personal growth. They kind of keep you at like a fifth grade level,
You
I
have to
always
be in
say.
the box. You can't think outside that
Yeah,
box.
yeah, yeah. So I'm assuming that up to that point, that's where you were, where we all are or were. So
Mhm.
when did you decide, when did you kind of step into realizing that you had to do some sort of personal growth in your life?
So it's so crazy because I was always top of my class in school. And I remember in grade 10, 11, 12, there's pressure. What university are you going to? What college are you going to? What are you taking? What are you going to go do? Right. And that wasn't on the table for us growing up as witnesses.
Yeah.
Post-secondary education was kind of like a big no-no, especially when I was growing up. Now I think that they've changed they've I don't know, they're more lax about it. I don't know what the word is, but that wasn't on the table. And I remember my teachers calling my parents when I said I wasn't going to go to school, calling my parents and saying, "You have to let Angela go to university. Like, you can't let her waste her mind. We'll make sure that it's all expenses paid. She will have every scholarship that there is, and it won't be any money out of your pocket, but you have to let her do it." And the answer was no. And So that's part of personal development. So that really, really was a stigmatizing thing for me because I always felt embarrassed by the fact that I hadn't gone to university, I hadn't had a professional career, I didn't have all of those things, right? And now my circle of friends are friends that are very well established in their careers. They have the university degrees, and I always was a little bit embarrassed about it, to be honest.
Yeah.
And probably they don't care. Probably it's in my head and they don't care. But I think that that personal growth was always important to me because I felt robbed of it.
100%. Wow. So individuals at your school saw so much potential in you that they called your parents.
Mhm.
Wow. Was that a conversation that they had with you before?
Teachers told me that they were going to call my parents, and my parents told me that it happened. I didn't overhear the conversation, but
Wow. Well, how did do you remember how you felt? Were you thrilled? Because you're in the truth, right? You're in the religion, the truth.
mhm.
So, were you proud? Like, I'm doing all of the things that are appropriate, or were you sad? Like, now you're saying what you're saying, but how did you feel initially? Did you feel robbed initially?
Yes, to be honest, I did feel
Wow.
robbed initially because you're brought up thinking that you have to pioneer after school. That's what you have to do. But in my mind, I wanted to go to university. I wanted to be able to support myself financially, and then I would have pioneered. Then I would have done that. I didn't want to be like every other witness and have to start a cleaning company,
Yeah.
have the flexibility to go to the meetings and go to the assembly and do all the things, right? So I didn't want to be that person. And I'd always been entrepreneurial. Like I remember I remember a story where my mom had a friend over and she was flipping through, I was probably like 8 or 9. I wasn't very old. And she was flipping through a catalog and she wrote down some stuff and then she passed this woman money. And after she left, I'm like, Mom, what was that all about? And she's like, oh, the friend that she has a little side business and she sells from this catalog and she makes money. And I remember a light bulb going off in my head, and I'm like, I can do this job. I can do this job now.
It sounds like Avon. Was it Avon?
It wasn't Avon. It was called, I don't know if you have it in the US, but it was called Regal.
Oh, no.
And
Okay.
Regal, so it's like, that they had a lot of the as seen on TV. They had a lot of those little gadgety things, but
Okay.
they basically were like a stationery company and they sold greeting cards and that kind of thing. Anyways, I remember contacting the company and saying that I wanted to be a rep, not telling my parents this. And you got to remember there was no internet there then. So I had to do some research and I had to find the address on the back of the catalog from the woman. I had to write them a letter and actually put it in the post office. Anyways, they came back and said you had to be 18 to be able to be a consultant without your parents' signature.
Yeah.
I begged my parents. I'm like, you have to let me do this. So they did. They let me do it. But the caveat to it was is that I had to go through the catalog and I had to cross out all the birthday cards, said that they weren't available. All the Christmas cards weren't available.
Oh my
Anyways, and I did that all through my teen years. Like even at like in my early 20s, I still was I had my Regal catalog. Anyway.
You know what's so hypocritical about that? And not to, I always have a tough time with this because, like, they mean well, right? They're not trying to do anything that's ridiculous. But if you got a job at Walmart, are you not supposed to go to work during Christmas, Valentine's Day, Easter? Like, how does that work?
I remember one lady in our congregation, her daughter got a job like at a local pharmacy and they sold lotto tickets there. And she actually had to tell her employer that she was not going to sell the lotto tickets at the cash. She had to call someone else to come and do it.
Wow.
Yeah,
I guess that's just the moral compass, but it's very hypocritical. Like, it doesn't make any sense to me.
it's
You know,
true.
I worked at several stores my entire my young teens, and Christmas, like, everything is Christmas. Like, what are you supposed to do? So then you minimize it to the catalog. You're trying to open your own store,
Mhm.
and all of a sudden it becomes an issue that's just so interesting to me on
And
your
even like in the first years that Keith and I were together, I started a wedding and event business, and that transferred into doing events around Christmas. Like I had corporate companies that would call and ask me to do their Christmas parties. And I remember the elders coming and telling me that I couldn't be doing their Christmas parties. And I'm like, this is my job. This is my
Wow.
job. You know what I mean? And it became a big issue. And that's another thing that really like drove me insane. If I put a bale of hay outside my door in September, I was doing Halloween decorating at my house. Like it didn't anyway.
Wow.
Yeah.
Wow, that's so interesting to me. And, it's definitely something to really kind of take a couple steps back and look at when you're in that situation.
And that was another thing when we had weddings and the weddings were in the church, they
Yeah.
would tell me that I couldn't go in the church, and that was part of my job.
Yeah. Yeah. I remember our family dealt with stuff like that too. So crazy. When you first left,
Mhm.
um, I don't know, I want to hear as far as when you like the nervousness or the scared or what am I going to do now or I have no friends because within the congregation you're only supposed to have witness friends.
Mhm.
So what did your stepping out look like? What was your circumstance as far as, you know, cutting off and taking that step into the world?
Right. So, I guess, like I said before, I have an amazing supportive spouse. He's pretty amazing. Like, of course it's hard. Of course it's hard, but when I make a decision like that, there's no going back from that decision. So, I was strong and staunch in that, and I actually reached out to people that I was closest to and told them that I was leaving. I didn't just
Like
keep
like
myself.
like within the congregation you actually okay.
Yeah, like, we stopped going to the Kingdom Hall, and, of course, the elders show up and say, "Can we help you to come back?" or whatever, their little thing that they do. But for my closest friends in the congregation and my kids, of course, had their dad's family were all still very active witnesses, so their aunts and uncles, who we met with regularly, who, we had family dinners with and everything. I had to tell them, and I just flat out told them, "Look, this is where I was at. I'm not going anymore." And it was interesting because I was really ready to tell them the whole experience, like the whole how I got sick every time I went to the Kingdom Hall, all of the terrible things that happened to me while I was a single parent and had no support from anybody. The hypocrisy there is ridiculous. And I was prepared to answer all those questions, but they didn't ask them.
Wow.
They didn't ask them. They just were like, "I can't believe that you're condemning our niece and nephew, our grandchildren to death, basically."
Wow.
Mhm. That was hard, and that was the hard part for my kids because
Yeah.
they got cut off, and I really had Keith and I had really put in an extra concentrated effort into making sure that their relationship with their dad's family was solid. So I think leaving the religion wasn't hard, losing their family for sure was difficult.
Yeah, definitely. Anything else? Did you do anything else as far as kind of moving forward into the life that you're in now?
So, happily and for me, in that my business allows me to form great friendships, or pre-COVID, it allowed me to form great friendships. So I had a lot, like some of my best friends were my clients now. Like some of the people I'm closest to are people who came to me to do their events and we became friends, and people that I use, the vendors in the industry. One of my very best friends is a caterer that we use her all the time in our businesses. So anyways, it's just funny how life goes. And I have to say that all of the friendships I lost in the religion, there's still a cut there. There's still like an open wound
Yeah.
because these are people I love and care about. And I no matter what they did in their life, I would never cut them out of my life. But to have them when you don't have that choice and they
Yeah.
cut you out, it still hurts. But the people that I have in my life now are amazing. Like they're so amazing and they're so supportive. And I share my story with them, and they are so supportive. And so I told you about the stigma of not going to university. One of my good friends is a provincial judge, and she's like, "Oh my God, Angela, like how can you be embarrassed by that?" Like she's at the top 3% of her career. Like 3% of lawyers actually become judges. And she's like, she really is so supportive in that. She said, "You're one of the most intelligent people I've ever met. How can you be embarrassed or feel stigmatized by that?"
Wow.
Just yeah, a wonderful thing for her to have said to me.
Yeah. Yeah. 100%. 100%. And I think that, doing what you did as far as, stepping away, I think that there are so many individuals who feel very similar to the way that you felt. And, it's just taking that initial step. It's just taking that initial step. There's a lot of fear around that.
It sure is. And I will tell you that, and maybe this is not 100% true, but it takes a very strong mind to leave a cult.
Yeah.
You have to have a strong mind because you have to be able to think past all of the things that have been indoctrinated in you. Like literally, you've been
Yeah.
brainwashed since being a child, and you have to have a strong mind. But the rewards are so worth it.
Yeah. Yeah, definitely. I agree with you. And I think a lot of it also to go along with what you're saying is just getting over the gossip. Being able to kind of wipe your hands clean and say, "Hey, they're going to say what they're going to say, and
Mhm.
it just is what it is." Because when you're in it, you hear it all.
Yeah.
So then exactly what's going on when you leave, and no one wants that. No one wants,
Mhm.
their good friends to be talking negatively about them, especially since nothing changed. It's just you have a different belief system.
Yeah. And you know what? That's so empowering. It's so empowering to be able to walk away and no longer worry what other people are going to
Yeah.
say. That's stepping into your authentic self.
Yeah.
That's You have to do that if you want to be your authentic self. You can't live by conforming to everybody what they expect from you.
Yeah. What do you think is the number one reason why people stay?
I think most people do not believe the doctrines that they teach anymore, but I think that they stay because of the loss of community.
Yeah. Yeah.
It's crazy because my father-in-law, he passed away a year and a half ago, and he was a German elder in our congregation and very and in the end of his life, I would say he 100% did not believe in the religion anymore, but he never left because of the community. And also pride. I think pride is a big thing because he was an elder and he wouldn't want to have ever admitted that he spent his life in something that wasn't real.
Yeah. That's what I think. I think agree with you, with the friends and family, but I think it's ego.
For men especially, and I know that sounds very sexist, but I think for men it's
Yeah.
ego
Yeah.
more than anything else.
Yeah, because you lived half your life, trying to drill this into people's brains like an idiot. And
Mhm.
then all of a sudden you're starting to have a different change of thought. And then you have to go back to those people and say, "Oh,
Sorry.
yeah." They don't want to do that. They don't want to do that. So they're going to take it to the grave and they wind up killing themselves like they're dead right now. They're
Mhm.
literally dead right now, just like leading the rest of their lives until their actual death. Um, but I think a lot of them are kind of empty shells,
Yeah.
just trying to save face. So unfortunate.
What a waste of a life, though.
Yeah, yeah. Totally different if you believe, right?
Yes.
There's 2 different. And I never like to diss
Mhm.
any religion because just as much as we have a right to feel a certain way, they also have a right to feel a certain way. Where my frustration comes in is those who no longer believe, who are questioning it, and they're like mulling around for years and years. And you can see it. You can hear it a little bit of their talking. You can like sense that
Mhm.
they're just giving up. They're just doing the thing.
Going through the motions.
Yeah,
Mhm.
that's sad.
It is. It is. You're absolutely right.
100%.